Welcome to today's explainer. Measure twice, cut once. The anatomy of an irreversible choice. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into this. What actually happens when a choice just cannot be undone? In life, we frequently run into what we can think of as a one-way door. These are those truly irreversible decisions. Once you walk through, that lock clicks shut right behind you. Make the wrong choice here, and man, it costs immense time, effort, and sometimes even your reputation to try and fix it.
And this brings us to a super fascinating concept, the massive asymmetry of choices. There's just this deep, deep imbalance between preparation and consequence. Pausing to take a breath or double-check a spreadsheet, that costs almost nothing. It's remarkably cheap. But reversing a hasty mistake, that is incredibly costly. It's kind of the fundamental law of irreversible actions. Preparation is cheap, but repair is incredibly expensive.
Act 1, Papa's Workshop Wisdom.
So our author shares this incredibly grounding, almost fireside-style memory about his dad, Papa Q Bear, out working in his woodshop. Before the saw ever even touched the timber, Papa Q Bear would always say, "Sonny boy, make that measurement twice before you cut. You don't get another chance with a piece of wood." It's such a beautifully simple, resonant memory. And honestly, anytime we face an action in life that cannot be undone, those exact words should come flooding right back to us. And this brilliantly illustrates how that old-school craft wisdom applies perfectly to our modern lives. Sure, we might not all be carpenters, but we absolutely all have to make the cut. The cut is simply any modern irreversible action. Hitting send on that highly sensitive email to your boss, pushing the button on a massive financial investment, finalizing a huge legal contract. These are our modern pieces of wood. Once they're cut, they just can't be stretched back.
Act 2, History of the Cut.
Now, it's amazing because this concept literally spans centuries and cultures. Back in 1560, the famed Italian goldsmith Benvenuto Cellini actually wrote about the wisdom of simple men who mark 7 times and cut once. By 1688, you had a Cheshire proverb advising tradesmen to score twice before you cut once. And then, by 1785, a Scottish Gaelic collection linked this exact same idea to the traditional art of kilt making.
Now, you might be wondering, why kilt making? Well, a traditional kilt for a grown man takes a massive 7 yards of fine fabric. If a tailor makes even a single wrong snip, they don't just ruin a tiny patch, they spoil the entire highly expensive garment. So you can definitely see why an early Scottish proverb warned that it's way better to measure short of 7 times than to spoil the whole thing in an instant.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the cultural contrast. In the English tradition, we kind of settle for measure twice, cut once. It's cautious, it's practical, right? But the Russian and Gallic traditions advise to measure 7 times, cut once. This reveals this deep, almost sacred reverence for extreme caution. It was a mandate that verifying your details wasn't just a polite suggestion. It was an absolute, non-negotiable necessity to avoid total disaster.
Because think about it, the roots of this proverb are grounded in unforgiving physical reality. A carpenter who cut a board too short couldn't just magically stretch it back out. A tailor's ruined fabric meant the whole garment was just garbage. In these early trades, a single bad cut meant wasted material, hours of extra labor, and, crucially, lost trust from the client. It was a very literal, non-metaphorical disaster.
Which brings us to Act 3, Metaphors for Modern Life.
So pretty much every major decision you make has 2 distinct phases. First is the reversible step: drafting, planning, double-checking your data. It's completely safe. You can change your mind 100 times here. But then you reach the irreversible step: pushing a code update to millions of users, diagnosing a patient, or allocating company funds. This is where the cut actually happens. You have to ensure all the safety of that preparation phase is fully exhausted before you cross over. There's this great quote here: "Thoughtful preparation may seem slow, yet it saves time and resources later by avoiding rework." In our fast-moving, hyper-connected environments, it often feels like speed is literally the only metric that matters. But this wisdom is exactly what separates eventual success from immediate, crushing regret. Being methodical isn't being slow. Actually, scratch that. It is the truest, most reliable path to real speed.
Let's move to our conclusion and see how this all builds together. The synthesis, rules for the cut.
So whenever you face that pit-in-your-stomach anxiety of a final decision, use this simple framework as your guide. First, just pause before acting. Take a breath.
Second, ruthlessly verify your facts and assumptions. Like, are you absolutely sure the board is the right length? Third, align this action with your ultimate goals to ensure this cut gets you the final product you actually want. And finally, execute the irreversible step confidently. Because you've measured twice, you don't have to cut with a shaking hand.
To wrap up, the core takeaways are crystal clear. Preparation is a form of efficiency, not hesitation. Seriously, don't let anyone tell you that double-checking is a sign of weakness. The cost of verification is always, always lower than the cost of a massive mistake. Slowing down prevents cost of waste. It's kind of the ultimate productivity hack, right?
And as we bring this explainer full circle, I want us to go right back to the warmth of that wood shop. Hold on to Papa Q Bear's words as your emotional anchor. You really don't get another chance with a piece of wood.
So, the crucial point is this. The next time you're standing in front of a one-way door, about to make an irreversible commitment, will you take the time to measure again? I highly encourage you to do exactly that. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. And hey, happy measuring!